I'm Adam Walthouse, so I'm one of the deputy heads here at Boulder Academy, and I'm also the designated safeguarding lead as well of the school.
I am Mariana Hernandez, and I am the pastoral manager for Year 9 here at Boulder. Yeah.
I am Dr Sophie Berteau. I'm a counselling psychologist. I work for CAHMS in Hounslow, Tier 2.
Thank you, Sophie.
Thank you very much. So today's topic for our Living Boulder Live session is seeking help and support for young people who self-harm.
How do we define self-harm? So I suppose what we have in the screen, self-harm in itself, we can refer to it as any behavior where someone is intentionally causing harm to themselves. So that can be minor, it can be high risk, as long as it's causing, an injury or harm. Self-harm is usually not an attempt to suicide, but it's an attempt to avoid psychological pain. And I think one of the things that we really wanted to be able to stress in the presentation was the fact that although it's an unhelpful coping skill, it is still a coping skill. So sometimes, self-harming serves a function for the young person, and that needs to be recognized. Then one of the things that, and it was Sophie who it was her input when we were going through this presentation. She said, self-harming in her clinical experience, and I suppose, as well, like in theory, you can see that it's usually a phase in the development of teenagers. So I think it's quite reassuring as a parent to know that it will likely pass. So basically, it's all about being able to support them through that difficult stage. Self-harming is a very common behavior in young people, and it affects around 1 in 12 people, and 10% of those being between 15 and 16.
So it is really important to reiterate that obviously if self-harming is happening right now, or you come across anybody, a child or young person or otherwise, self-harming right at this moment, that you do call for assistance on 999, or if you feel that it's someone might be at risk, then you can always call 101 as well if you'd like to talk it through or seek further support. So that's really important to stress that. We'll talk about a lot of different things during the course of this presentation, but ultimately, if it is happening right here and now, that is important to seek medical assistance as soon as possible.
Why do young people self-harm? So I know that for parents probably, but for parents and for anyone who who love and are near to these young people, the first questions that you will make yourself is that you will ask yourself is, why would they choose, to harm themselves? And I know that's a difficult question you get your head around. So there are many reasons why. So we said before, self-harming is an unhelpful coping skill. So a lot of the times, young people, one of the reasons that they do it, it can be, to they're experiencing depression, anxiety, or eating problems, and they use self-harming, as a strategy, to release or manage these difficult feelings. Having low self-esteem or feeling that they're not good enough, being bullied or feeling alone, experiencing emotional, physical, or sexual abuse or neglect, grieving or having problems with family relationships. And feeling angry, numb, or like they don't have control over their lives. So I've highlighted in yellow the ones that are more common or more prevalent in our kids here at Boulder, or the things that I tend to listen in my pastoral room. And I think for our kids, definitely for a lot of them, this idea of not having control over their lives, and feeling really angry for all kinds of situations, especially with the lockdown, and where everyone in general was feeling, we as adults, we were feeling out of control. And I think for them that was really exacerbated because there is already so much that they don't have control over in their lives. And then I think just the lockdown really accentuated that feeling in them.
So can I just ask Dr. Sophie, is this shared by you in terms of the ones that are highlighted on the screen? Is this what you're finding as well with the cases that you're dealing with at the moment? That these are some of the most common things that are coming through in your conversations with our young people?
Dr. Sophie?
Sorry, Anne. Yeah. So I totally agree. And I think there's perhaps feelings of shame as well. So anger, feelings of shame, for instance, after an argument with mom or dad, and being quite, abrupt, perhaps using strong language, and then that could create feelings of shame. And then maybe the young person might self-harm as a way of coping with that shame. Anger, definitely depression, and feeling numb. Some young people just don't feel anything, and then do that in order to seek reassurance, to feel alive. So yes, these are very, very common. And sometimes it's just because a friend has done it, and they want that could be the case. And they want to do it because a friend has done it, or another friend has done it, and then they decide to try. There's that aspect as well.
Mm.
So if anybody is watching this in this live broadcast, you should be able to see on the right hand side a little Q&A button in a little speech bubble. If you'd like to ask us any questions, or if you'd like to put anything forward to us during this short presentation, then we will come to those questions at the end, and we'll make sure that we have time to discuss some of the points that you raised. So please do feel free to make any comments there on the right hand side. It should be a little speech bubble.
So signs of self-harm, what to look out for. So, young people, you might, in terms of their narrative, they are very self-blaming. They express feelings of failure. They feel quite hopeless and quite useless. And so, physically, you can look out for unexplained cuts and burns or bite marks, bruises, bald patches. They might say, that you might realize that they have frequent injuries, that they might say they are for contact sports, but they might have some bruises. They might keep themselves covered up even when it's not appropriate to do it. And it might be, might not be weather appropriate, so it might be very, very warm, and they will still be, wearing long sleeves. You would notice in terms, emotionally, you would notice that there is low mood, irritability, changes in socializing, and also changes in their sleeping and eating patterns. And suppose we have alcohol, drugs, and risk-taking, and I suppose for our teenagers, that in some of them, we are already seeing, that they are, engaging in, yes, like in alcohol consumption, and definitely, drug taking. So yeah, maybe that's definitely something to look out for as well.
And I think it's really important at this moment to really state clearly that this is a problem that is happening in so many schools across the country, and is a problem that is really gaining more attention. Thankfully, we are becoming more and more aware of the situation with our young people, and we are working very closely. We here at Boulder are working very closely with people like Dr Sophie from CAHMS and other external agencies to really get the young people that we have the support that they need. So Dr Sophie, do you have, how many schools do you think you might be working with in terms of the amount of students that you're seeing at the moment?
We don't work directly with schools. I mean, if we have a young person, we would liaise with the school, because I think it's very important to create a network around the young person, to create a supportive network. So involving the school is very important, but also looking outside, who else could help? Friends, an uncle, grandmother, who knows? So we work, it's very, very common. As you said, it's becoming, I wouldn't say normal, but I think it's very frequent. And we see that in almost, all schools that we work with, directly or indirectly. But it's very, very common.
Thank you, Dr. Sophie. So what should we do? So from a parent perspective, so what should you do if your child is self-harming now? So risk assess the situation. So if it's, I suppose the first question is it life-threatening, or the wounds need medical attention? I think, it might be sometimes that it's not life-threatening, but the wounds are still quite, maybe quite deep. So if the answer to that is yes, then talk to your GP so you can get, medical attention, or call AME, depending if it is life-threatening. If the wounds are not, life-threatening, they're not really deep, then if the answer to that is no, but of course, you're still concerned, you have to, talk to your child about it, explore options, make a plan together, and follow through. So each one of these, we're gonna talk about them in a bit more depth, and Dr. Sophie is gonna do that for us. I just want to say before we move forward, when we answer yes, and we talk to the GP or A&E, we're still gonna have to do all of these things. You're still gonna have to talk to your child about it, explore options with them, make a plan together, and follow through. So yes, I'm just gonna then pass it now to Dr. Sophie.
Thank you. Yes, so what should I do if my child is self-harming now? So I think, as Mariana and Adam said, if the self-harming is quite deep and you think it requires medical attention, please do, I'd like to highlight that, please do contact your GP or 999. Okay, so while we're talking, the actions I'm going to talk about is if the self-harming is low to moderate. If it's severe, I think it's important to use another approach and to seek medical advice ASAP. Okay, but what I would like to acknowledge to start with is the trauma that it is for parents, and sometimes we focus on the child, which is very important, but we tend to forget parents. And for most parents, knowing that their child is self-harming creates a sense of grief, and it's a very, very traumatic event. And I think it's important to validate that. And I'd like to highlight that although parents might have, my experience, very strong feeling, it's very important that they remain calm and offer a non-judgmental attitude, because what happens if parents are, and it's very hard to do, but what happens if parents tend to show their emotions or they display their emotions, then the child can become worried, and then the child might become more secretive in the way they do it. Okay, so instead of cutting on their forearms, they might just cut on their thighs, and then it's easier to spot, it's easier to deal with. So it becomes secretive, which is more dangerous. But then how to talk about it? I think it's important to pick the right time. So for example, with some children, sitting down with the child and having an open discussion might work, whereas with other children, it might not work. It might be too formal. So maybe talking about it whilst the person is cooking or doing the dishes or in the car might be a better way of talking about the situation. And again, showing a not judgmental attitude, listening, asking open questions. So open questions allow, because with closed questions, the child can just say yes or no. With open questions, the child has, or the young person has the opportunity to talk more. So open questions usually start with WH. So what happened, what was going on, who was there, how is also very useful, how were you feeling at the time, why is not that useful, because it can convey a message of blame. Oh, why did you do that? And again, avoided phrases like, don't do it anymore, and you shouldn't be doing that. It's not going to help. And also, it's very important to show empathy. So acknowledging their feelings, acknowledging it's difficult, but also creating a message of hope. Like together, we can come out of it. And also normalizing, as we talked about, it's very common. A lot of young people do it in all schools, and it's as Mariana said, it's a phase and it will pass. I'd like to highlight that it's not a mental health condition, it's not a mental health need. Okay. And thank you. And again, perhaps, if you're not sure where to start, you can start with sometimes when people are in a lot of emotional pain, they may hurt themselves to cope. So that's showing empathy. And okay, that's a close question, but still, it can be useful as well. Is that how your injury happened?
I'll be honest as well, sometimes it's those moments where, if we, on those occasions where we have those experiences in school with children who self-harm, you feel that kind of urge to slip into solve mode, you know, very, very quickly. And despite knowing, you know, all of these kind of bits of information about what we think we should do, and listening to lots of different people's advice, sometimes it's that almost overwhelming urge to slip into, I need to fix this, I need to do something urgently to fix this, you know, why have you done this, and you shouldn't be doing this, and it becomes kind of automatic, doesn't it? And it's just so difficult to switch out of that mindset and just think, right, let's talk openly, and let's really try to really get into their shoes and find out what's working on for them. It is so difficult, something I really struggle with as well.
Yes, absolutely. It's about containing our emotions. We can be really hard because it's, you know, it's difficult for parents, but that's key. The language is very, very important.
Are you happy for me to go to?
Yes, please. Yes, thank you. So yeah, as we said, it's about exploring options. So having an honest, calm, non-judgmental discussion, and it's about conveying hope and explain to your child that there are plenty of options that they can use. Talking to the GP, referring, sending a referral via the GP or school to CAHMS. So we can't refer to CAHMS, but the school can do that, and so can the GP. There's also counselling services such as HICS in Hounslow, which could help. And on a more pragmatic level, perhaps physical activity, having a healthy diet, sleeping, all that helps. Maybe the child might be more likely to self-harm if it's around exams. When they're taking exams. There's also some very useful apps such as Blue, Ice and Distract. And again, as we discussed, it's about communicating with the school, not staying alone with it, sharing. There's, you know, it's very, very important. Sometimes parents feel that they've done something wrong and then blame themselves, and that's not the case. That's not the case. And I think it's important to speak to others about it, to create a network that can support the child, because the child might be more comfortable talking to their uncle, for instance, or their cousin, rather than mum or dad. And on a very practical level, it's important to try and delay the self-harming, and if the child can delay the action for several minutes, then the urge is likely to pass. Not all the time, but it's more likely. And there's replacement alternatives, such as, for instance, using a rubber band, an elastic that they put around their wrist and that they pull. Sometimes pitching can also help. And I worked with a child who was actually telling me that that was a piece of advice from her friends, and she was saying that they recommended that she draw a butterfly where she wanted to self-harm, and that the butterfly would eventually fly away. You know, so she penciled the butterfly using red ink, and that the butterfly would eventually fly away. And if she had managed not to self-harm until the butterfly flies away, then it's a success, which means she hasn't self-harmed in several days. And I think drawing a butterfly and wanting to set it free whilst not self-harming is a beautiful thing. And yes, and I think, Mariana, you're going to talk about other techniques.
Yes, thank you, Sophie. Yeah, so I think, you know, as Sophie was saying, you know, the idea of delaying and or replacing the behavior. So there are many distractions and strategies, and of course, all of these things will depend on your young person. So some things will work for some of them, some things, you know, won't. But at least, you know, so I'm just gonna like name a few of them. So there are like a distraction, you know, can be displacing. So finding strategies like drawing on yourself in red mark, also putting a plaster or a bandage on the place where the young person wants to self-harm, or squeezing an ice cube, because it gives tactic, like, yes, it gives a sensation of pain. They can be, you know, distractions are reinforcing, so thinking about the gains is and I suppose, you know, that might be a bit more difficult to do for some of our young people. So thinking, you know, if I don't self-harm, then, you know, I won't have scars during the summer, and I could wear, you know, I can wear the dress that I want to wear, or, you know, wear, you know, the sleeveless shirt that I want to wear, or, you know, also think, you know, I don't really like, you know, when I self-harm, sometimes I have to be taken into the hospital. So, you know, if I don't, then, you know, I won't have to go into the hospital. Definitely physical exercise, or doing sit-ups, punching a bag. So all of these are very tactile, physical things. Popping bubble wrap, taking your anger on a soft toy. They can be more creative if our child is particularly creative, like knitting, or playing a musical instrument, singing. It can be cuddling a soft pillow, crying, having a massage, or, you know, if your child is particularly, you know, academically minded and really enjoys doing homework, it could be, you know, doing homework or just writing a to-do list. So some of our kids are really, you know, they really like organizing, and into something like that, it will be soothing for them. Painting their nails, talking to a friend or a trusted adult. It could be calling a helpline, or, you know, doing something like cooking or baking. So in terms of what should I do with my child if self-harming? So I think we went through this. So I think making a plan it was the next step. So we spoke about exploring the options, making a plan with them. So we've spoken about how to talk about it. We've spoken about, you know, exploring alternatives to delaying the behavior. And I think once that you've done those things, then make a plan with them. And I think Sophie, she stressed this idea of just really being their companion and being that like competent, capable adult that can sit with them and say, you know, what you're going through is really hard. And, you know, like I'm here to, you know, go through this with you. So making a plan with them will include, you know, then just saying, okay, so let's try these things, you know, let's try these options, let's look at them. And no, it's okay to monitor your child, but don't make them feel like you're policing them, because then again, you know, that might increase the risk, in the sense, like as Sophie said, then, you know, they might just be secretive about it, and don't want to really, you know, then be open about it. As much as you can maintain a sense of normality around the routines, the discipline that you have at home, and the expectations, and keep the communication channels open at all times. And I want to make communication channels with them, but also with all the people that are around them. So the school, you know, CAHMS, if CAHMS is involved, the GP, because it really is about, you know, creating the support network around them. And just make sure that you follow through and that you keep your person informed. If you agreed with your child that you were going to self-refer, you know, you're going to help them to self-refer to counseling, do that. Say, okay, let's sit down, let's do it together. I'm going to call the school, and I'm going to let, you know, your pastoral manager know, so you can, you know, if that's a person that you feel that you can trust. And so really do follow through with the things that you're doing, and keep them updated.
I would just say as well, it's interesting because we at Boulder, safeguarding is our absolute #1 priority. We are absolutely watertight when it comes to safeguarding and making sure that the mental and physical well-being of our children and young people is at its absolute best as much as we possibly can. And we are relentless in seeking out different ways and means and opportunities to get them the help that they might need. Just one thing that really that comes to light every year is that you never really know who a child might open up to. And sometimes you might think there's one person that they're particularly close to, maybe it's you, maybe it's their best friend, and sometimes this child or young person just, that's not who they go to first. Sometimes it might be an uncle, sometimes it might be a pastoral manager, sometimes it might be someone in the canteen, sometimes it might be a member of staff that they've spoken to once or twice before. And for some reason, they just have made that connection with them, and they feel that they can trust them and really open up to them. And as hard as that can be, you know, sometimes, you know, when we're here doing our job as part of a pastoral team, we want our children to talk to us. And as hard as it can be sometimes that they don't want to open up to us, we have to encourage those lines of communication and really just say, brilliant, you've found somebody that you can talk to, you know, can you find them? Can you make a time to go and speak to them? You know, maybe make contact with them and just make a connection there, and just say, you know, I'm here if I can do anything to help that communication, just let me know. There's lots of things that can be done, and sometimes it's really surprising who our young people choose to open up to, and that's why we say, you know, at the start of our safeguarding training that we give staff every single year, we say just be open to the prospect of, you know, a young person coming to you and just telling you something that's on their mind. So just something I wanted to just put in there. You know, sometimes it's really unpredictable, but the moment that they make that connection, that's the step on the road to get to them getting the help that they then need.
Yeah, so I suppose we have what should I do my child is self-harming at other times, so I suppose it will be the same. You know, we will look up for signs. So I suppose, you know, if the child is self-harming at school, we would definitely, you know, we will make contact with you, or if you know if your child was self-harming, let's say in extracurricular activity, someone called. So follow the same steps, you know, look up for the signs, talk to the school, talk to your child, you know, be open, be ready to listen, explore options with them, you know, whether those are the distracting alternative behaviors, or you're seeking professional advice, make a plan with them and follow through.
I think that's really key, isn't it? Follow through. And yeah, I think as even if there's no immediate solutions or things that can be put in place, just knowing that you are listening and that you will do things that could help is a huge reassurance to our young people. I'm sure, Dr. Sophie, you feel the same as well.
Yes, completely. Yes. It's important to be present as a parent. I think it's very important, and to follow through, to convey a message of hope, and to stay with your child. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Sophie. So these are useful resources, and some of these were shared by our school nurse, and some of these as well were shared by Dr. Sophie kindly. And I think we've heard very good feedback from the young minds. So that seems to be like a very useful resource, for parents. But then as well, here we have the NHS app library, and in all of the apps that we spoke about, Blue Eyes, Calm Harm, Distract, all of those are apps that are free, and they are evidence-based. So those are, yes, so these are just, you know, resources that you can use, you know, and yeah, call if you need any advice. Yeah. Do you have any questions for us?
So as we mentioned before, there is a Q&A box just, I think it's on the right hand side, that has it's a little question mark in a speech bubble. So if you have any questions or comments that you would like to make, now we're throwing open the floor to you, and we'll do our best to help and support. If you would rather speak to us at some other time, then of course our details are available on our school's website. They're also they should be in the child's planner as well. And also you can give the school a call at some point tomorrow and just request to speak to one of us, and we'll find some time to speak to you as soon as we possibly can. So I'll hold open the floor just for a few more minutes in case anybody has any questions. And just to say thank you again for joining us for this session. We don't want to go on too much longer. We know it's a very busy time of the day, but we'll just keep the Q&A open for a few minutes longer.
Yeah, thank you.
And Dr. Sophie, thank you very much for your time as well.
Yes, Sophie, thank you so much for doing
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Agreeing to it last week and this week. Yeah, we're really grateful. Yeah.
It's okay.
So in terms of, Dr. Sophie, in terms of the young people that you see, do you feel that this is a situation? I mean, there's lots of stories in the media. There's lots of representation of self-harm that young people might be exposed to. How do you feel about that? Do you think it's good to have it so readily available? Do you think that where's that sort of line of where it might turn perhaps more problematic, or do you think it is good that they are exposed as much as possible to these kind of things?
I think
that's a really huge question.
Yeah,
it's
an interesting question. It's an interesting question. I think the media, sometimes what is said in the media is very is not helpful. I think it creates more anxiety than anything else. And also in terms of talking about it, I think it's although it's key to talk about it, in some schools have set up some groups where young people can, and forums like on a weekly basis where young people are allowed to talk about it. And actually what we have found with some of those schools, and again I'm going to be very careful because it's only with some of them, that the number of young people self-harming has actually increased. So I think there's a balance. I think it's important to talk about it, but I think at the same time there's a balance, and perhaps sometimes the focus needs to shift. I'm wondering. I'm not sure. It's a very interesting question, and I could talk to my colleagues about it and perhaps offer a more thorough answer. But
that's so
yeah,
doctor. Yeah.
In terms of any parents and carers that might still be with us, again, our Q&A is open on the right-hand side if you'd like to ask any questions. Otherwise, we will come to a close very soon with our contact details. Again, we always end with our contact details on the screen. But I think, yeah, one app that I've used in particular, the Blue Ice app, I know has been really beneficial. Another one is called Me Too. You might see it in some literature. That's set up by a friend of mine who is a governor in another school, and I know I've seen how it works, and I've just been so impressed with the ability it gives our young people the ability to have really closely curated conversations about this difficult subject matter, because there's obviously lots of advice available online and lots of forums available, but it's very loosely monitored in some respects.
Yes.
Me Too is very carefully monitored by trained peers and mediators so that they can have a discussion that is very carefully controlled and monitored. So I think it's a great app. It's MEETWO, Me Too, all one word, and it's available on Android and Apple and all of the other services. So I think we don't have any questions here now. So just to say thank you again to everybody for joining us for this session. Just to have on as our ending screen, just the contact details for the pastoral managers that we have in school at the moment. So Mr. Aki in Year 7, Miss Knight in Year 8, and Miss Hernandez obviously in Year 9. And if you'd like to contact me as well, there's my email address on the screen. And again, it's available on the website, or if you give the school a call tomorrow, we'll make some time at some point in the day to give you a call back. So again, Dr. Sophie, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
It's so reassuring to hear and just share this information. So thank you very much. And thank you to you as well.
Yeah.
I was passionate about the young people that you work with, Mariana, and I feel very privileged to work with you. So thank you for all of your support.
Thank you. Yeah, we hope that we can do it again, Sophie. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.